So, okay, let's go then. And I've got a few questions here. Let me just go, the first one, it's unattributed, this one. This is a question about the Swindon Council strategy mentioning the district heating scheme. Who was it who posed that question today? Are they any views? They're not in the so they disappeared.
Yes, at the back, yeah.
Sorry. Would you like me to read it out on your behalf?
Yes.
Right, okay. The council strategy mentioned a district heating scheme for Swindon. How and when is this intended to be implemented? Dale, would you like to have first crack at that?
So it is part of the council strategy, which is signed up to all councillors, to deliver district heating in Swindon. So in 2011, there was a feasibility study done of 3 locations around the town. The 2 most well known are North Star with the Oasis and the research councils. And that kind of location, so you've got a good energy use as consumption and potential businesses to sign up to it. And down at Richelstone, where you've got the new developments. Last week, actually, I can say this, the council applied to the new DEC, which is the Department of Climate Change heat network that's been set up. It's a group of government department, effectively, to get additional expertise to cost up how much it would actually cost to be able to do these kind of things in Swindon. As a project manager, I've got fairly formal view on how to take these things forward, and I actually don't believe that Swindon is in a position right today to give a date on when district heating will come forward in Swindon. I think you can ask me again in 12 months' time, and actually I think we're in a much better place. The reason why I say that is to retrofit these kind of systems into existing areas is actually really, really difficult. And that's what we have to get around at the moment, is how do you use the railway corridor and get into the businesses and the housing to be able to deliver it. And that question for me has not yet been answered, so I think it would be premature to actually say too much about it. I'm just being a pragmatic realist on this one, without being trying to be too waffling on it.
Gary, do you want to comment on this, or you probably?
I don't know.
Molly, do you want to say?
I'll say something.
Molly,
I'll
sorry.
always say something. I just wanted to say that I think district heating is quite an interesting example of what you end up with when you don't have a market energy supply. Because I was in Berlin last month, and if you visit any of the cities of Central and Eastern Europe, you see district heating systems there. And the reason they're there is that the state took responsibility for providing people with warm homes. And I think it's very interesting that in our market-based economy, we actually have individual energy purchase, and this is actually inefficient, I think, in sustainability terms. So, you know, we hear that actually it's difficult to retrofit systems because you need to design sustainable communities at the beginning. We haven't done that because we've looked at our homes and our energy supply in an individual way, and I think that's one of the fundamental shifts we need to make or move towards a more sustainable future. And I also wanted to say that something else we can learn from Central and Eastern Europe is the importance of having very good quality, high quality homes in the first place, particularly energy efficient homes. Anybody who's been to any of those countries can say, you know, share with me that the appreciation for the really warm homes that they have compared to our extremely drafty homes here. And unfortunately, that's something else which we're going to have to retrofit, but it's absolutely a priority. It's less glamorous than setting up lovely new district heating systems or, you know, solar farms, but actually making our homes energy efficient is a key priority, and obviously will create a lot of jobs as well.
Robert, would you like to?
Well, yeah, as ever, Molly always gives me food for thought, and I've got a challenge here. I think the idea that we can have some sort of dual centrally controlled system is for the birds, with respect. I do think individual responsibility and monitoring of our own energy consumption is the way forward, which is why I strongly support the use of smart meters and other devices, so that people can self-educate, and they will, and they are, self-educating about the importance of reducing consumption at home. Molly is quite right to talk about the unglamorous side of things and the retrofitting of homes. And in Swindon we've got a challenge on. A lot of our homes are now of some age. We've of course got the Victorian stock here in Old Town and in the town centre. We've got a number of homes now from the 50s and 60s that again need a lot of work. And there's been a lot of progress made about insulation, which is good, but quite clearly more needs to be done, which is why Green Deal, which will evolve. I think it's had a slow start, I'll admit, but I think it will evolve. Those sort of schemes are going to be very important in terms of reducing consumption, because it's not just domestic consumption, it's businesses as well, and more businesses now are getting wise to this by installing circuit breakers, all the sort of mechanisms, the simple stuff that can actually save them thousands of pounds a year and save the consumption of energy. If we don't nail the reduction in energy consumption, we're going to have a growing problem on our hands.
Okay, let's have any comments on the floor, because Julian Jones actually, who's here, has also raised a sort of related question on the Green Deal. I don't know whether Julian wants to actually say anything in relation to the question we just posed, and then perhaps we can move on to your one specifically about the Green Deal.
Yeah, I'd just comment that Green Deal, which is, as I understand it, the government's flagship method for delivering insulation, at the beginning of this year, the number of measures installed dropped off very substantially when the previous measures were announced. I'm just wondering how you're going to redress that.
Let me just be rather provocative. I think it could be described as flatteringly inefficient.
The Green Deal,
Yes.
You need to incentivise people doing that. That's the trouble. To incentivise people to do it. That's the trouble.
Any more views on the district heating system and Green Deal? Go. Julian, does that pick up your question, or do you want to actually come back? You want to come back to the
well, I just comment that I think it's partly because of the high cost of finance associated with the Green Deal, and we clearly need some mechanism to sort of change the economy here to make it not really expensive. And I'm wondering how we can recover this. Hopefully before the next election.
Anything else on that? Do you any of you want to comment on this idea about incentivising this take-up or reduction in energy usage demand?
Excuse me, I put in a question about the energy company's obligation.
I was going to come back.
Thank you.
Well, just to agree with Julian, I believe the interest rate on the Green Deal is 8%. So it's just, you can't expect people to borrow money for home improvements, energy improvements, if they're going to have to pay 8%. So I think it's a completely unrealistic rate. I see that Left Foot Forward today are proposing that rather than help to buy, the government does help to heat and makes finance available for something that's useful and constructive for society, rather than just reinflating the housing bubble.
As
I provoked you again.
No, not at all, because I wanted to come back on Julian's point, and I acknowledge that I think that it's been a slow take-up. I think, speaking frankly, I think people think, gosh, that's quite a big outlay, bearing in mind, what they're going to get back for it. However, I think in the long term, I think it is a sustainable project. There is now going to be a cashback incentive, which allows for more of a flow of money back to the investor at the beginning. So I think that is something that could help galvanise support for it. But my view is that I keep on feeding these messages back to the ministers, and I will do so again as a result of tonight's meeting. I think if there are ways in which we can tweak it and make it more attractive to residents, then we've got to do that. On eco. I'm a big supporter of eco. There's been a lot of debate and discussion about it in the recent days. I think that moving it from bills onto general taxation would be a wise move. I don't equate making it a longer scheme in terms of its duration. Actually, I don't equate that with a reduction in its effectiveness. I think that actually extending the life of eco would be a better thing. What I don't want to see is that we lose it altogether. I think that would be a big mistake. I think it's the way in which we're going to get more and more insulation, and therefore the debate about whether it should be on bills or on general taxation is secondary to the principle of eco, which will remain.
Gary, would you like to?
I'll stand up again. I'm not sure standing up is a good or bad idea. But, it certainly makes you feel much more vulnerable as a speaker, I can tell you, so that's a good thing. I wanted to come back sort of rather tangentially, I suppose, to a point about district heating. Because for me, the issue is actually about community ownership, rather than about provision. And it's about thinking about challenging ways of how do we create opportunities for people to generate energy locally and reduce dependence on supplies coming in from further afield. And one of the things I find really attractive about what Swindon is proposing to do in terms of the generation of so much of its energy from photovoltaics is the opportunity that that can stimulate for local ownership of that. There are two ways it can go, I think. One way is that you can have large commercial interests coming in, running large commercial photovoltaic schemes, and the profit effectively goes to big business and it's exported. And yes, of course, you get the benefit of the energy generation locally, but actually some of that benefit is lost. When it becomes slightly more manageable in size, then the opportunities for local people to buy into that and to create community ownership of that energy becomes much more real. I was really interested to read about the village in Gloucestershire that has decided that they want to have a wind turbine. Yes, they may think it's a blot on the landscape, they may think it's beautiful, but actually what they think is really important is that they generate enough electricity from a single wind turbine in their village to actually power half of the village. And the profit from that wind turbine is being used to pay for community facilities. So actually, the negative feelings are overcome by the sense that actually it's our turbine. And we can see the benefit of that turbine directly in our schools because we bought a whole load of new laptops for all the primary school pupils and so on. And what we're trying to do here in Swindon with the photovoltaic schemes is something similar. So if I could just spend a moment just to explain a little bit about how I think that can go, the alternative model, about rather than exporting it. So Wiltshire Wildlife Trust has teamed up with another company to create the Wiltshire Wildlife Community Energy Company. And that community energy company is in the process of setting up solar arrays to provide electricity. That company is owned by the members of the company. And so people in that community benefit scheme are able to buy a share in the company. Minimum investment was £500, maximum was £20,000. One share, one vote. It's that kind of democratic process. But the whole of the money that's generated from the scheme is ploughed back into community. So it creates a pot of money that's then distributed, and members can have a say in how that money is spent, what projects it wants to support. And all of that is owned locally. If we can see a model in Swindon where not only do we generate the renewable energy to power the houses in Swindon, but the people of Swindon believe and really do own the energy generation, I think that creates a really exciting new model that actually says something very different and very special about Swindon. And that's what I meant about the green economy, about giving us opportunities to think in creative ways that maybe are slightly different. Maybe things that you think out of the box to solve the problem. And actually you empower people, you create a greater sense of community, you don't see that money being exported, you see that all that money being circulated within the community. And of course, if you can then link that together with the manufacturing of the photovoltaics and so on, and you manage you maintain the sites and install them, and that's creating local jobs. All of that is hugely beneficial for local people. So that's what I see about in terms of district heating. I see it actually communities, neighbourhoods, try and find ways to power things at that local level. Thank you.
Thank you, very interesting in other dimensions. Dale, do you want to mop up on this one?
Just a very quick one. I agree with what Gary's been saying. It kind of shows what he's been there, that we are trying to do things differently here in Swindon. Not just as a council, but actually with the community and the associations around. We are trying to do things differently and learn the lessons of other local authorities and other approaches to do these things. So a cooperative type model is an important part of what we need to be accomplishing on this. But going back to the original question around the Green Deal, I actually don't think it's a very good deal in the sense of you do need incentives to be able to really get people's interest in it and get it signed up. And not a single idea I've yet come across whether it's from any political party or any government over the last 15, 20 years, around trying to do insulation and energy efficiency has got to really get to the bottom of the problem. And the reason why I say that is, we need to stop talking about 10,000, 50,000 people, 100,000 people signing up to it. We've got housing stock in the millions that we need to sort out, back from the Victorian times. Here in Swindon, we've got tens of thousands, going back to the 1940s, 50s, 60s, that we need to sort out insulation for. Energy efficiency. How do we actually get to those kind of people so they're actually knocking on the government's door to say, I want you to sort this out? And I've not to actually see anything kind of even crop up on the radar to say they're really going to get to the bottom of that. And I think that's the big challenge that politicians and energy companies really have to get home about. I think I should give a good example of this. When we look at energy bills at the moment, it's a very topical thing. Yet 6 months ago, we actually ran with IGUs and Manchester Council as a consortium of other councils. We saved over 700 households an average of £70 each on their gas and electricity bills. How do I scale 700 houses up to 90,000 houses? I have a challenge on my hands around that. It doesn't matter about the law and those kind of things. These are practical things people can do today, and it is money saving in their pocket, and they do not do it. How do we get across that message you can do these things today and tackle it? I think that's the big challenge that we as panellists have to answer as much as anything else.
Well, I mean, just as an aside, I'm involved in a project being funded by the Joseph Rowntree Foundation, on the management group of it at the University of York. They're doing experiments, but on that, as some of you probably know, Joseph Rowntree Foundation of York has a series of estates, like akin to the Bourneville village in Birmingham, where they've looked at the potential of using the Green Deal to overcome some of the energy efficiency problems and that. And it's just, no one wants, it's just, they can't, no one can afford to do it. It's just not, it needs to be incentivised more. That's multiplying it up. There's something that needs to be done to kickstart this, because to my mind, as I made a comment earlier on, it's been flatteringly inefficient in a way that it hasn't prompted the take-up that it should have done a year or 18 months in.